Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most prestigious chess tournaments of 2024 has just kicked off. And in the first round, we had a preview of the World Chess Championship that will go down in Singapore in November, December 2024. Now, for whatever reason you're watching beyond that, it all happened already. I don't know who won. All right? So let me know. Let me know in the comment section in case you're watching in 2025. The tournament that I'm covering today is very unique because last year at this tournament, or rather not last year, but in 2022, that was the tournament where the famous Magnus Hans game went down. Crazy it's been that long. But today I've got a different flavor of game for you, as Magnus and Hans are not playing. So that is the last time that we mention them in this video. Today we've got a doozy. We have Ding Liren and Gukesh D. Not to be confused with Gukesh Demoraju, his alter ego. So this is a very exciting game. I've also got Wesley So versus Anish Giri. I've got Praggnanandhaa versus Nojibek Abdusattor. I have Jan Nepomniachtchi versus Maxim Vachier. Nobody cares. These guys have, been at the top for like 15 years. Nobody cares about these guys. And we have Fabiano Caruana versus Alireza Firouzja. Of course, I'm joking. We care about every single one of these games. And this game in particular, the last game that I'm going to be showing you today, was absolutely bonkers. Before we jump into the games today, I'm just kidding. There's no sponsor. There's no sponsor today. But I am working on an English course. So, yeah, that's exciting. Ding Liren, D Gukesh, on to E4. Over the last few years, Ding has been playing a lot of C4, a lot of English. He's normally a D4, C4, Knight F3, G3, Bishop G2 Catalan player. There is a very high probability that he does not want to play the Catalan now because he's preparing a lot of ideas for the World Championship match. So he plays E4 and Gukesh plays E5. Right now at the top level, there's like an 80% chance somebody just plays symmetrical because the meta with black is don't lose and the meta with white is also don't lose, but you have a higher chance of winning by like 1%. E5, Knight F3, Knight C6. Nobody at the high level plays the Vienna, sadly, because they're not educated, cultured individuals like you and I. So Knight F3, Knight C6. Of course, the Vienna is just easy to equalize at high level. Now we have castles, and we have the following position. Gukesh plays a very active Italian, all right? And he could castle, he could play A6. There are some H6 and G5 ideas. The truth is, you will never understand the difference, and I'm going to try to break it down for you. I'm not trying to insult you. I will let you know before I insult you. And I have seen some comments like, I don't know why this guy thinks it's cool to insult his audience. I'm insulting myself. Nobody understands all of the meta of the Italian, but I will tell you that A5 is designed to prevent B4, which is one of the setups that white can take. In fact, remember this game I was going to show you, here's that setup. Caruana played B4 against Alireza. So Gukesh plays A5, so we don't get B4. Rookie 1, castles, H3. This move is self-explanatory. It prevents anything from going to G4, Bishop E6, and now this move Bishop to B5. The idea by Ding is to take the knight on C6, okay? And after he takes that knight, it's probably to play a quick D4. So for example, if H6, you can take, but also you are threatening the move pawn to D4, which simply looks like it wins a huge amount of material. It doesn't, barely, but white is better. So Bishop B5, the bishop moves out of the center of the board so that the move D4 does not come with the tempo. Now D4, you can actually just drop the bishop back. It is kind of interesting that you can play like this. Now white is like, oh, I kind of want to go back too, but you can't do that. So now we have a lot of pressure on the position. So bishop goes back to A7, Ding plays bishop E3. I think Gukesh here spent his time, 12 minutes, playing bishop E6 and bishop A7. And now we have this move bishop to E3. So Ding offers an exchange of the powerful black bishop, bishop takes, and rook takes. In a nutshell, white's ideas include D4 and a kingside attack. Those are white's two ideas. Black's ideas include also playing in the center and don't lose to the kingside attack. Otherwise, the position is relatively balanced. Now black plays knight E7. Again, I told you, if black really would like to avoid a situation where damaging the structure doesn't happen, black also wants to avoid a situation where you get caught with your pants down. I don't know why Gukesh is taking off his pants in the playing hall. You got to speak to him about that. But you don't want to get caught with your pants down in a situation where You're losing pawns in the center. So rook e3, the knight goes to e7. Now we see d4, and now you're going to see this bishop say, well, look, my job is done. So I'm going to go all the way back to the home square. It's a very common idea. You don't want to put the bishop on d3, because in many lines, it actually will simply become a target, and you play bishop f1. This is what we call in chess a prophylactic move, because we want to use big words. We want to seem smart, because just playing the chess doesn't make us seem smart enough. And we have very fragile egos in chess, so we want to really, really seem smart. Prophylactic actually is a early remedy to a problem, right? You see that this is on the way, so you always have g3. This is always protected. The bishop is not a target. And now we have d5. And now the spiciest moment of the game. Clearly, being down 25 minutes here, Gukesh is not particularly comfortable with the position, but he is trying to figure things out. Now, knight bd2 is the move after 20 minutes of thought chosen by Ding. That's because here he has to calculate pawn takes d5 followed by something taking on e5. He also has to calculate pawn takes e5. And he has to calculate knight bd2. He also has to calculate knight e5. And the truth is, every single one of these moves has its own merit. de5 is the worst because black quickly opens up the position. And knight e5 is possible. ed5 is stupid because you walk directly into a tempo. I mean, it's okay, but it's, you know, less intelligent than knight bd2. And now Gukesh takes with the knight. It's actually interesting. He has to take with the knight. You may ask, what's the difference? de. Now I can take on e5. And the difference is we're not trading the queens. And after this trade, you simply lose a pawn. Knight e5, rook e4, and you are a pawn down. So not wanting to be a pawn down, Gukesh takes with the knight, which is the correct move. And Ding still takes the pawn behind him. Knight takes and pawn takes. With some pressure over here. Clearly, Gukesh thought, if I just trade off the pieces, I might be a touch worse. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create counterplay with my pawns. Because if I don't, if I just sit solidly, Ding is going to play rook e1. And if I just, continue to try to improve, he's going to stop me. And then it's not really clear what black is doing. So Ding will go here, or he will play g4, f4, f5, and simply mate you. So Gukesh goes for this line where he's going to trade off the knights. And we have our first very, very tense moment in this budding rivalry, which will culminate at the end of this year, rook g3. And the threat is quite simply queen h6 with a checkmating idea. Black can play king h8. That stops queen h6 because now it hangs a queen. But still, the attack is quite strong. I mean, Ding has control of the center, a little bit more space, and yeah, I mean, it's not really clear where the counterplay is coming from, but it's there. And Gukesh now makes a horrendous mistake. Pawn to d4. Now, it's a natural move. All right, and how did Gukesh think for 22 minutes and lose the game, right? Like, you see this, you go, oh my god, my favorite chess player is losing. Because the advantage is 0.8. That's how you guys watch my games. And then you call me dumb. That's how I watch your games and call you dumb. But I can actually explain why the eval bar says what it says. Major difference. So d4 is a logical move because Gukesh is trying to basically play queen d4. He's trying to trade the queens. No queens, you can't get mated. Looks like you're getting mated. There's no mate. There's no mate and the queen is really active. d4 is losing because I'm going to play queen h6. Now, why on earth did it take Ding Liren 30 minutes to play queen h6? Because he was probably calculating other things like queen f4 and rook e1 and other lines. So queen h6, it's not that Ding was calculating queen h6. It's that he was calculating, what is he doing now? And the winning idea here for white, the move that gets you a big advantage, is the move rook e1. The idea of rook e1 is that basically you go up and you help. Let's say black takes, right? You take, black plays like bishop a2. So rook e4 threatens rook h4, right? It looks devastating. However, there is a4. Rook h4, and it's not that clear who's stopping this pawn. Now white has to play rook e3. Black will play bishop b1, and the pawn's 2 squares away from queen. Maybe Ding saw this and was like, oh my god, what is this? But he does have bishop c4, but okay, fine. What about bishop e6? Rook e1, a2, and actually, you do stop the pawn. You do. Now, in a dream situation, black gets something that looks like this, at which point, you probably, I don't know how you're going to survive, but white is still better. So Ding needed to play queen h6, g6, and then rook e1, rook e4, rook h4, and even then it's not completely clear. But he plays bishop to d3 quickly, because that's why he calculated queen h6. Now, I don't know what he didn't like about rook e1. Maybe he saw that line where all the pawn gets down. Maybe he didn't exactly see what to play after bishop f5. But what you play now is you play rook f3 and create this threat. It is a threat. Like, for example, dc3, bc3, like a4, you always threatening rook f5 ideas. But you also, like, for example, rook here, rook f5, rook g3. But you also have just the simple rook f4, rook h4. But Ding misses this idea, instead trying to utilize his bishop, and now Gukesh finds a nice move. I think what Ding overlooked here, he probably saw this, c4, bishop e4, d3, h4, and he has a very strong attack. But you know what's crazy about this position? There's no attack. Looks like you're just, right, just destroying. No, queen h4. This is a very key defensive resource. You sneak behind the pawn. Maybe that's what Gukesh thought he had this whole time. And the problem with the position now is you have allowed c4 and d3. And basically, if you don't win, you will lose every endgame because black's pawn is protected, and it's a huge asset. Which is why in this position, Ding sacrifices all of his pieces and forces a draw by repetition of the moves. So it was tense, all right? It was tense for a moment. This was the big moment here, and Ding needed to calculate queen h6 and rook e1, and that would have been a statement because then he would have had a raging attack. I don't know if he would have still converted, but beating a guy right before you have to play him in a match for a world championship would have been a big statement. Ding misses it, and perhaps some nerves, some jitters are settled. These two do not play each other again until the World Chess Championship, as far as I know, and that is in 3 months. They might in some random event, but I think this is it. They might play in the Olympiad, although I'm not sure if Gukesh is playing for India. I mean, he might be, but he also might choose to focus on the World Championship, but he probably is. So they might play in the Olympiad, which is in a month. Draw. Because Ding saw the counterplay. He didn't play the best way. He decides, you know what, I'm not going to risk it. Let's make a draw. I mean, top-level chess is frequently a draw. Now we have Wesley So and Ishgiri. Wesley here plays actually something that I am quite familiar with. In my tournaments, I have been playing both knight f3 and c4. And here he plays bishop g2. So this is basically a Catalan, except now white does not play d4, which would be a Catalan. White plays b3, which is called Neo-Catalan, because it's like sort of a Catalan, but sort of not. And basically black's play here is c5, d4. Black can play d4 right away. Black can also play c5, d4, or black can play b6. These are the 3 setups. Anish plays c5. Wesley plays bishop b2. Still, by the way, may I add, allowing black to play d4. The other option is for white to take on d5 and then play d4. And there's a lot of theory here, but if black knows what he's doing, which at this level black knows what he's doing, he will probably just force a draw in some 15 moves, because that's what these top-level guys have done to chess. They've absolutely ruined it. And Stockfish, but mostly these guys. Knight c6, e3, and d4 comes in. And this is a reversed Benoni setup. White's main idea here is putting the knight on e5, as well as playing for a3 and b4 and expanding this blob of pawns. So what black does is black frequently trades the knight on e5, counterattacks, and also plays a5, preventing this. And all modern engines say that this position is completely equal and totally okay. Pawn to d3, there's a5 preventing the expansion on the side of the board. The knight goes to e5, and we have knight takes, rook takes, the knight goes back to d7, and there's a move here, rook b5, which is recommended by the computer. I mean, I don't know. But instead we have rook e1 and e5. And what's funny is that the engine straight up thinks that black is better, which is so hilarious. Again, because black is controlling white's pawn play. White does not have any pawn play. So what white needs to do is maneuver the pieces. Not like that. That would be illegal. But so we have knight a3, bishop b4, and the rook goes back to... I mean, this just looks insane, right? So here, rook a6 is a nice idea, and you may even have ideas in the future to checkmate white. Maybe. But you also unpin yourself from this bishop, and life is good. Instead, Anish plays knight c5. He spends 20 minutes. The knight goes to b5. Anish creates quick counterplay against d3. I mean, it looks like the pawn is simply falling, but black is just in time to attack the bishop, and we get a liquidation. So bishop in, take, 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 rook c1, a4, still attacking the queen side, but we're going to get the queens off, rook b8, and it's quite sharp. I mean, it's still quite sharp. Anish definitely has to be careful here. Bishop c4 takes, and the knight, at the end of the day, takes the rook. Some of you may have been confused how there was a rook hanging for literally... Well, there was actually two rooks hanging. Both rooks were hanging. But the thing is that white is going to lose one of them, and they can't save both. Right, so the rook moved. You took a pawn because both rooks are still hanging. And ultimately, what happens here is opposite colored bishops. Bishop to b5. And this is just a draw. Why is it a draw? Opposite colored bishops. Very, very normal, especially with an equal amount of pawns. There's simply no way in. It's not like this king is going to march to c5 very easily. And yeah, Wesley still had a little bit of pressure here, microscopic level of an advantage. But he simply trades the pieces. The players repeat the moves. And not too much happened. But what's funny is that, yeah, I mean, in these structures, you got to play really accurately because the computer thinks that black is just straight up better, which is quite crazy. And yeah, I mean, Wesley played it this way. So Anish needed to remember this move d4. And then here Anish had to remember the right kind of defensive equalizing setup. Generally nowadays, white is taking on d5, but it is all a big fat draw. Knight f3 and g3, and like this setup, if black doesn't want to have a game, black will make a draw. Okay, Pragg versus Nodjerbek. Another e4, e5. This one a Petrov defense and a line. This is the classical Petrov. In this line, white plays the bishops out and castles long. Black goes this way, and the two sides just go to attack each other. Now, I have never seen... First of all, knight c6 is super rare. Like, I don't know what the database check is here. I wonder, can I use the explore function? Yeah, like, the move is bishop e7, and then knight c6 is really rare. Probably about 10% of the games are in this position. Bishop to e3 is the move chosen, and after bishop e7, it's definitely not queen d3. It's definitely not queen d3. I mean, white goes here. That is what white plays. So queen d3's got to be a new move. Nodjerbek plays bishop e6, and you know, again, you want to bring the bishop out, so why did you block it? This is like this is the thing about, like, somebody introduces a new idea. Okay, what's the point? a6, see Nodjerbek spending a bunch of time. And now king b1. Pragg also spends a bunch of time. The computer already wants Pragg to start an attack, but he plays king b1. It's hard to argue with how normal that move is. And now he plays h3. Again, you would think this is the point. You'd think, like, okay, you're trying to go knight g5. Like, that's why you put the queen on d3. But he plays h3. Now, maybe he's going to play h4 later, TBD. And by TBD, I mean I saw the game. But he plays h3. You would, again, think that this is the point. Now Nodjerbek immediately creates counterplay, and he's going to get the knight off the board. So the knight is traded. But bishop d3. Ooh. That also could be one of the ideas of this line. You bring the queen out more actively, and you don't take, and you threaten mates. Now black has to make a weakening move, and is slightly worse. Black is slightly worse because they are quite passive, and white begins the attack. White's attack is simply going to come first. h5 is very weakening, and already some nasty sacrificial ideas here, which is why Nodjerbek opts to play queen a5. And here, Pragg needs to notice this, take a deep breath, and forget about it. And that's very tough to do. It looks like you are getting ravaged. But even if you lose all the pawns, the queen is trapped. The queen is just straight up trapped. So, okay, fine. What if I just go back? What if I don't even check you in A1? What if, like, in this position I play, I don't know, good question, by the way. What do you play? If you try to attack, you lose. Queen G3. Keep trying to attack. I play takes, bishop G6, you can resign. My attack is first. I have mate some way, I don't know. Move the bishop. And if you take, this is just mate. So, queen A5, and Pragg now plays A3 immediately. Completely, like, he played H4, he knew this was coming, but he didn't even consider here that he could play H5. And he probably should have, because taking on A2 is unbelievably dangerous by black. So he plays A3 kind of on autopilot, but now queen D5. Now queen D5, and now he tries to continue, but with no queens, you're not mating anybody. You're just not mating anybody. And we can already end things here. For some reason, Pragg didn't quite have the killer instinct here. He needed to just allow this. And I get it. I totally understand this is not easy to do, but Pragg played an opening where you are ready to scrap. All right? He basically played an opening where he's like, look, one of us is going to go down. But then he played it so responsibly, you know? He's like, no, you're not going to get in here with your queen. No, but this is not the same quality of attack. Now, make no mistake, he's still attacking, but he's attacking to create long-term problems like this. But if black defends accurately, he should hold. And right now, basically, it's coming down to, you know, does black actually have a meaningful number of weaknesses here to exploit? Yeah, I mean, I like the position. White has some pressure, but Nodirbek plays very nicely, gets rid of the bishops, and this is just simply heading for a draw, and the players repeat moves. I think Pragg is going to not be happy. I mean, he really isn't going to be happy because he got a dream position. Opposite side castling, and the first one to strike. And here he needed to play H5. And to be honest with you, I mean, if he played like this, he very well could have won this game. I mean, this is a very, very difficult position. The top line of the engine here is bishop E6, queen G3 with pressure, black goes G5, and you play H6. And I mean, y'all, the king is safe on D2. I mean, that king is vibing. So Pragg will definitely not be so happy here. But okay, whatever. Maybe jet lag. Listen, I would know a thing or two about jet lag. But he's got a whole tournament, you know, to pick things up. Я не помнящий, Maxime Vachier, Maxime playing E4, E5, which is, I mean, blasphemous behavior, considering Maxime invented the modern Najdorf with thousands and thousands of games. But now he plays E4, E5. He has made these recent additions to his repertoire to not always be taking so much risk. And Jan plays D4. And I think the point is that he's trying to kind of, you know, I have a course actually on Chessly on the white gambits and this move D4. But if black basically takes and knows a little bit of stuff, he'll be okay. He takes here. Taking on E4 is actually bad. You shouldn't take on E4. But you should take on D4 and then play D5, knight E4, bishop D7, and bishop C6, BC6, and castles. And now white plays F3, kicks out the knight, plays F4, and plays C3, bishop E3, and knight D2. These three moves, boink, 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 to control the position. Sometimes the king goes to H1. So here's F3, here's F4, and here's F5. And what's funny about this position is, look at MVL's time. He doesn't even think. Like, he just knows everything. He just, I take, bishop E7, F4, just... Knight C3, rookie, he's just not thinking. He's just not thinking. I mean, he memorized all of this. Knight E4, DE, still not thinking. E6, he's still not thinking. FE, bishop, still not thinking. 17, is he gonna think now? Okay, 10 minutes. But I think that's mostly because he could literally make any bishop move. So any bishop move here is fine. He plays bishop F6. Why, you know, he's gonna lose this pawn, and probably we are just going to liquidate all the pieces and go for a draw at some point. H3. Okay, yeah, the boys are still making some moves, but yeah, nothing here. Nepo tried to gamble in the opening, and it simply, in a nutshell, did not work out at all. And the players repeat moves. Yeah, I mean, I think Jan was like, well, Maxime normally does not play this, so maybe he won't know. And Maxime not only, bro, he knew 20 moves of theory. I mean, my guy, he didn't even pause to think. And the game just liquidates into a draw. Now, here's a game that didn't liquidate into a draw. I spoiled the opening a little bit. It was, Gukesh played a5 earlier, but we have b4, so a setup where white takes a bunch of queenside space. Yet another way to play the Italian. And this game was quite sharp. We see this concept of d4, but now we do not see bishop f1, right? So we see queen c2, very different type of game. Rook e8, maybe the bishop is going to go back to f1 now at some point. Ooh. E takes d4. Fabiano, look at this. Fabiano showing some nice Italian preparation, double entendre, considering he's actually Italian. In case you couldn't tell from Fabiano, Caruana, and the icing on the cake is this man's name is Luigi. Middle name, not name, middle name. Did I say that? I don't know. It's late. I mean, can you come up with a more Italian name? I mean, Francesco. I guess his name could have been Francesco Luigi Carovaletto. There you go. Like, if that was his name, I mean, yeah, that'd be a done deal. But he's showing he's got prep in the Italian, and it's prep where he gives up 2 pawns in the center, but he gets 2 bishops. And clearly, things are looking quite nice here. As he takes, all his pieces look mighty nice. The problem is his opponent has 80 minutes to figure this out. And the thing about classical chess is you can play in a way that's very aggressive, right? You can give your opponent a pawn, but you can't solve chess. Like, all the guy's got to do is not do anything really ridiculous, and he'll be fine. Rook d3, rook d8, rook f3. These are the ideas of the opening. Rook d7, Alireza just defending himself, and now rook f5. But now bishop d4, and Alireza's like, if I trade the pieces, he's not going to be able to attack me. Now, we have takes, and bishop g5. Poking over here. Rook b8, bishop f6, pawn f6, and queen c1. If you actually look at the head-to-head score between Fabiano and Alireza in classical chess, it is heavily in the favor of Fabiano. In fact, I will do that. I'm going to go to the chessgames.com. And these two in classical, it's 7-2 Fabi. He wins a lot against Alireza, and frequently Alireza is in time trouble. And in this game, there was only 1 time control, and Alireza's got 10 minutes for the remainder of the game. As you see here, a lot of progress has been made, but it's still probably just going to be a draw. And the computer thinks that black is actually better, but it's very tough to prove that. If black starts, getting greedy and playing like this, white will very quickly attack on the light squares. Fun fact, the attacking side benefits from the opposite colored bishops, obviously, because you have a piece that can attack on a square that the other piece can't defend, right? So, yeah, I mean, this game gridlocked for a while, and Alireza had to defend himself with like a minute on the clock. And we got here, and okay, it's just a draw. Now, that's easy for me to say, sitting here with my, Cheeto fingers, like, oh, just draw, go home, boys. But no, it really is. I mean, you just can't break through. And as I've already shown, black really shouldn't take this pawn. You shouldn't take this pawn because of it opens up a front of attack, which suddenly you were not prepared for. So they start shuffling the pieces. I think somewhere here they make a repetition of moves. H4, king H3, and queen C8. He unpins himself, and queen G8. And Fabi can make a draw. Fabi says, draw? What? Dude's got a minute on the clock. What do you mean, draw? No draw. I'm threatening rook e5 discover check. Rook b8. Bishop c4. Now, I gotta tell you, okay? What Fabiano manages to get here looks really nice. And basically, Alireza now has to sacrifice his pieces. He has to play rook takes d5. Pawn takes d5, there's here. So you check here, rook b4, c b4, ed, queen d5. It's probably still a draw, but it's very complicated. But Alireza blunders because he makes a move with 6 seconds on the clock. And the winning concept here for white is insane. It is to trade the rook, allow 2 passed pawns, but there's no play. You can't actually make a move with black. If you play rook takes d5, I play rook f6, which is not findable. Just not fine. Nobody plays like this. So it's not an easy position. Instead, we have bishop f7. We get total chaos. Queen g8. Bishop f2 is an amazing move, utilizing this pin. And Fabiano here is down to 4 minutes, but he blunders. He plays queen to a8, and he forgets that after rook b4, c4, maybe he saw this and he liked it, that the bishop protects the check. He thought queen a8, he's got threats from the side, but he misplays, and now Ali Reza is playing for a win. Now, the best move in this position is king to g2. Now, you protect here with king b6, check here, check, block, queen f8 with some attacking ideas. Fabi didn't like that here the king feels like he's open, right? Like he's in the open. If you hide behind on h2, life is good. It's a bad move. It's a bad move because after king b6, which is not the best move, but the point is that now you can't go here because your rook is hanging. Fabi needed his king to protect his rook. The small details. And suddenly, it is Ali Reza who is playing for a win. He plays queen d7. He protects all the infiltration squares. Queen c5 check. And wait a minute. If you play here, I play king b7. There are no more checks. Queen c6, I trade all the pieces. Oops. Oh my God. And suddenly, Fabiano Caruana is losing. He played with fire. He got burnt. He's losing the game. I mean, and by the way, speaking, he played with fire. Firouzja, you know, rook b2. Firouzja's picked up the entire queen side. That's it. The game is over. Queen f3. Rook b6. It's over. I mean, you just lose. I'm just going back at some point, and I'm pushing my a pawn. Fabi tries his best. Queen a3. Queen d2, centralizing the pieces. I mean, the rook cannot move. Now a4. But suddenly, wait a minute, could this be? The winning move here for black, the winning concept, is actually to play queen c4, because after rook d7, rook b7, you shield with the queen, and the queen protects you. That's the point. Or you can take in the center. But Ali Reza gambles, and he blunders a draw on the 78th move and 6th hour of play, and it's a draw now because rook d7, rook b7, and the rook can come back and threaten rook a5. You allow a full queen, but this is insane. The queen does not participate. And the king is stuck. Remember this triangle. This is the right triangle of death, and you can catch a king like this because the stupid rook cannot do anything. Rook to d5 is a draw because you don't have time to defend yourself. King a6, queen a8, king b6, queen d8, rook c7. There's a million different checks. Actually, I think rook d6 loses. You have to play queen b8. And here, Fabiano Caruana played this move with 2:16 on the clock. He didn't even think, he just took. If you subtract 30 seconds from 2:42, he played that move in 4 seconds. He could have found this. Maybe he thought there was a perpetual check. Maybe he had surrendered to his fate. Rook d5 is straight up a draw. And he blunders it. And Ali Reza Firouzja runs his king all the way out to safety and wins the game. Insanity. Classical chess is bananas. 85 move victory for Ali Reza Firouzja. Fabiano Caruana now below 2790 for the first time in a couple of years, I think. Hikaru is the number 2 ranked player in the world by over 10 elo points, and Ding Gukesh was very spicy there for a second, but ultimately cools down, and nothing happens. I'll be covering the Singfield Cup for the rest of this week before my tournament. And that's all I've got for you today. Get out of here.